Welcome to Let's Talk Franchising, the podcast where we break down everything you need to know to turn your business into a thriving franchise, sell more franchise units, or just become a true franchise expert. I'm Susana Hands, your guide on this journey where we cut through the jargon, share real stories, expert tips, and inside strategies that actually works. Whether you're dreaming about franchising your business, stuck struggling to sell franchises, or simply hungry to learn the secrets of franchise success, you're in the right place. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive into today's episode. Let's talk franchising. Let me introduce you to someone who didn't just build a restaurant. He built an experience people line up for. Greg Rips is the founder and franchisor behind Third Wave, a brand that has completely refined what American barbecue looks like in Australia. What started as a single cafe in Melbourne back in 2010 has grown into a multi-location powerhouse, now recognized as one of the most authentic American barbecue experiences you'll find outside of the US. But here's what makes this story even more impressive. Third Wave isn't just about food, it's theatre. It's creativity, it's wow moments that keep customers coming back again and again. From viral menus, creations to immersive dining experiences, Greg has turned every plate into something unforgettable. The brand has over 1.3 million plus social followers, a global reach of nearly 100 million people monthly, hundreds of millions of videos viewed annually, and has been featured across major print, TV, and digital media. That kind of traction doesn't happen by accident. Behind is a founder with decades of business experience, a relentless work ethics, and a deep understanding of how to build not just a restaurant, but a scalable franchise brand. Now, Greg is taking that same proven formula and opening the doors for others, expanding Third Wave through franchising and giving entrepreneurs the opportunity to step into a business that already turned heads, creating demand and delivering serious customer experience. This isn't just barbecue, this is a brand, systems and scale done correctly. Welcome, Greg. Thank you very, very much for being here today. I just wanted to make it very casual, very fun, very entertaining, as we always spoke about when I saw you back in Melbourne and you hosted us in your beautiful restaurant. Tell me more about what made you get into franchising and how's it all going?
Okay. So look, we've been running this business for 16 years now almost. Started from a real tiny cafe with 35-seater and grew from there. And now it's franchising, and the plan is to have somewhere around, 30 to 50 venues in about 3 to 4 years. At the end of this year, we're looking at having about 12 to 13.
Is that sites?
That's actually open venues, not sold, but open venues. We probably will sell some more than that, my guess. What got me into franchising? Well, it was just a natural progression of growth. The way to grow is to potentially, it requires less capital. And also the way I see it is that probably the operator has more skin in the game as opposed to having corporate stores, which I had an idea that I don't want to have any more corporate stores, but that's changed now. It looks like we will be opening some corporate stores. It's just evolving. How we're approaching it is changing. So most of my original ideas probably had to be thrown out of the window and replaced with something different. A basic stayed, but over this 2-year journey now that we've had with franchising, most of my original concepts have had to change, unfortunately.
And we met maybe over 2 years ago when you were first starting to franchise. So to hear your growth in the last 2 years has been absolutely sensational because you've done extremely well. Tell me something. You went into US. How did that go?
Well, we haven't yet, but the plan is to do it next year.
Wow.
That's the plan. So that was just my experience with all those US people has been very poor so far. So I basically have to restart from scratch and use my own views on things, I think, as opposed to theirs. But the plan is to open the first one next year sometime.
Amazing. Amazing. And I guess when you say you were getting into franchising, do you think it was planned or you just sort of said it was a natural progression, as you said?
It was planned, yeah, absolutely. So the plan was to expand, and the question arose: how is it fund it all yourself, roll out corporate stores, etc. And It was just decided that no, we'll go franchising. I mean, again, certain things were clear at that time, and a lot were not. And we're still not 100% clear as to how it all works, but we're a little bit more knowledgeable now than we were before. And we're just getting non-stop learnings, I guess.
The learnings is the fantastic part of being part of the franchise model. And I guess in terms of when you got into franchising, did you find something to be a big mistake or a expensive experience, or were you able to kind of navigate it through without anything like that or any of your experiences?
I don't think there was a single thing that was navigated just smoothly. There wasn't, and there probably won't be. I think we need to have 10 open as a standalone franchise before we probably going to get our heads around. I think because we're just saying every new one opens with a massive amount of things that need to be adjusted, altered. Our franchise manual is growing by 100, 200 pages per opening, basically. That's what we're seeing right now. So it's become sort of a 1,000-page document now. I think it's going to grow from there. Just edge cases, people management, training requirements. Basically, every single thing that we considered originally was underdone by a factor of 1,000. Okay.
Yeah.
Everything that's easy for us is not easy for franchisees. Everything that's simple is not simple. Everything that's understandable is not understandable. Everything that's common sense is not common sense. Basically, you name a thing that is normal in our business every day, and it is completely abnormal in their business every day.
It's funny because I remember that day when we first got your first franchisee and you go, I thought that was normal. But what's normal for you and what's normal for a first franchisee is probably not that normal or that common sense, right? So I was quite excited when you sort of said that, because what your knowledge is, that's why people buy into you, because your knowledge is by far the best knowledge you can ever get. And that's why people invest in your brand. So it was quite interesting you said that. Have you found that you've been able to break through that barrier of getting them equipped with all the knowledge that you've got in your brain?
Not yet, but we've got processes planned for the next one to take care of it from
Good.
the learning of the first few that are going to be drastically different to the first ones. Unfortunately, it's actually unfortunate for the franchisee. It's not unfortunate for us because we have been. My original idea was to make it as cheap and as simple as possible for the franchisee.
Yeah.
It looks like that idea is great in theory. In practice, it doesn't work, unfortunately. And what we're finding is that we have to insist on certain proof of readiness for opening that we have not insisted on before, and that hurt both us as a brand and the franchisee as an operation. So yeah, moving forward, we'll be doing things quite drastically different to what opening looks like, what pre-opening looks like, what training looks like, what readiness looks like, etc.
And at what point did you feel that you needed to put more people in place to do certain roles? Because when you started, quite lean, right? And usually it's a franchisor and the idea and a couple of people that can do things. Did you find that you needed to put different people in different roles to kind of expand as you
Not
grew?
yet. Not yet. I will, but not yet. I can see that's going to be required, but we just don't have enough yet. I think at the end of the year, when we do have sort of 12 venues operating, some corporates, some franchisees, we're going to have to put specific roles to sort of overlook certain things, auditing, upkeep, quality upkeep, training upkeep, that kind of thing, where there needs to be dedicated time for the franchisees, and that may be someone in our team that spends some time doing that, something else. But yeah, our team will need to grow somewhat.
And tell me something, you had a really good, amazing kind of start with lead flow, because you had a really, and you still have a very good following from social media. You've done a lot of TV ads. You've done an amazing job when it comes to that. And you started with a very big following. So did you find that when you started lead generating for franchise sales, did you find that hard, easy, or it was a natural progression for you?
Well, look, we're advantaged in that we have a massive reach on our socials. And that does two things for us that a normal business just does not have. We have a brand, whereas a normal small business doesn't have a brand.
Yeah.
Uh, and we have reach. In other words, we can reach millions of people literally, whereas an average business cannot do that. So our lead flow is naturally simpler because of those two factors. People know the brand and they either have been following, or it's very easy to sort of, we're very visible, right? So it's very easy to have a look at who we are, what we are. right? You don't have to dig very deep. You can just go online and you can see, one video that just got 20 million views, another video that's got 30 million views, 5 million views, 10 million, whatever. So you just see it, right? We don't have to prove anything really. And that supports our lead flow. And really the only thing we do now, we're very simple with our lead flow. Either people come to us, fill out a form on our website, which is basically a pull, and push is we just do so Facebook advertising. There's nothing else that we do.
Interesting. Okay.
Okay. But that can only happen because of that supporting brand. And we're sort of advantage in that we can do that, right? Other businesses wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah. And like I said, you've got an absolute awesome following. I haven't seen this before, which is so amazing. And tell me, in regards to your sales, did you learn how to do the sales yourself, or you found somebody outside to do the sales, the franchise sales for you?
No. So we found someone, and that worked out really well.
So, and you've stayed with your external person this whole time? You haven't changed?
We've considered every now and then to change that, but I still want to stay lean. And look, we're basically on a trajectory, I believe, of selling one a month.
Good.
Right?
Okay.
And that's actually what's going to happen this year, and I think that's going to stay that way. I don't
Amazing.
think the reason why it wouldn't, unless something drastic happens. If we see that is certainty, that we can count on that, then we can consider probably more seriously bringing in house. But bringing in house means, again, investment upfront and all of that, which at the moment wasn't necessary, might become necessary sort of 5-6 months from now.
And I guess just on that note, most franchisors feel that they need to bring everything in house to start with. Do you recommend that, or do you feel like you don't really need it and they can still do a good job even though they work external to your internal team?
I think it's just dependent on the quality of the resource.
Okay.
Okay. I think you can always get everything done externally with the right people, with the right resource, or vice versa, or the other way around, right? It all depends. You can also stuff up internally because you got really bad people doing it. So it's one of those things. You find a resource that sort of makes sense and it works, whether internal or external. And then the only question is, well, how do financials work, right? At some point, I can see that it would be more economical to place somebody internally, especially if that role is a multifunction role where there is the sales and then there is support or this or the other. And as I said, when we need that, when we get to that point, that's when we can probably hire somebody to do both of those roles.
Yeah, I love it. And I think you just got to make sure that you actually do that trajectory in, and you just got to make sense. But I'm also very big on, if the culture is there, you're getting the right people that are aligned with you, your goals, your brand vision, it makes a lot more sense as well, right? You can't just get some random, even if you bring it internally or externally, they just won't work out. So,
Yeah, absolutely. So the one thing, especially in Australia is a bit different to other parts of the world. My belief is that in Australia, it's very hard to sell franchises. They have to be bought. And in my experience, it's a big distinction. Selling requires all sorts of methodology to sell, and it works because it's a push.
yeah.
Uh, Whereas in Australia, because of regulation, you can't sell, you can't prove anything, right? You're not allowed to prove anything. You just say, hey, you like it, buy it. That's it. Okay. So therefore, the people that are selling it have to be quite passionate about the brand, right? Because they just have to exude that passion so it becomes contagious. Because that's what people are ultimately buying. They're not buying numbers. They're buying numbers every other part of the world. They're not buying numbers in Australia. It's quite incredible. It's quite nonsensical, truthfully, but it is what it is, right? And we have to work within the parameters that we've got. So yeah, in other parts of the world, yeah, you can sell it. You can tell people you're going to earn this much and you're going to do this, and it's okay, right? But not in Australia. So yeah, when we get to US, our selling strategy is going to change drastically compared to how we're selling in Australia.
And that was really interesting you said that, because you're spot on, right? In Australia, we've got so many codes and regulations, and you can do this and you can't say this, and it's so heavily regulated. And I know, because I saw your model, your brand comes from very good numbers, very good stats, very good following. You have everything that is meant to be shining and saying, hey, look at all this, but we can't, right? And so in Australia, it became very challenging, I guess, for you as well, to sort of say, check out what I'm doing in Albert Park, which is, one of your stores, and check out what we couldn't do that, right? So we had to get a little bit creative when you started. And I love the fact that you have been able to navigate around that heaviness and the compliance and be able to achieve what you've achieved. So kudos to you and your team. You've done an amazing job, and I'm very excited to have known you from the beginning. So tell me something. When you franchised and you brought a person, did you ever regret bringing that person on board? No mentioning names, but did you think, why did I sign that person up? Are they going to give me a headache moving forward, or you didn't have that?
Truthfully, I think every franchisee is going to give me a headache. Okay, just to be completely frank, it's going to be a different headache for different people.
Yep.
Because they approach the business from a different perspective, and people that have some experience will give me a certain headache in one place. People who have no experience in business will give me a headache in another place. And ultimately, look, the thing about franchising, I have a couple of strong views on it, is that if we are selling a franchise, then the operations of the business are on the franchisee, right? It's their job to operate. We're not running their business. Okay. But also flip side of that is that we have to provide them with enough training and support to then expect them to run their business. And if they don't run their business properly, and those gaps are probably ours, most likely. And no matter how much we'd like to make them completely independent and feel like everything is up to them, it just doesn't work like that, unfortunately. And this is one of the changes we're going to be making, moving down the track for the next one and all the other ones, is that we want to fill all the gaps. We see gaps. We don't see all of them yet, but we see enough of them that we need to fill a lot more gaps than we have in initial support, initial training, initial confirmation of their knowledge of our systems and processes and how to follow them. And up to now, we just have not been as heavily committed to that. And the reason for it was primarily to make it cheaper for the franchisee, but that doesn't work.
So cheaper isn't better. So discounting your franchise to get people in isn't
It's not a discount. So I'll give you specific examples. So what's going to change is that moving forward, we are going to basically change how our procedure works when it comes to opening a venue. In the past, we would open a venue based on some planned date with a bunch of items still needing to be finalized. And what would happen every single time is that most of those things would have been finished and some were not. So we would be opening with unfinished, undone items. It could be training and something internal in the business. Basically, it's a rush, and that's basically going to stop in future. They have to prove to us that they're ready. And what that means to them is that they're going to be basically paying for their team for an extra 3 weeks when they do nothing. And so basically the cost to the franchisee is going to increase by $50,000 to $100,000 because of this change. So it's not the initial cost to the franchise, it's the back-end cost of actually opening.
Right. And you find that if you were to do that, what's going to change with what you're currently doing now?
Well,
so doing it the way you're doing it today, right? Today, I can assume that you've done it the different way to what you're going to change it to. So when you say you're going to make that change, what's that going to do for what you're currently doing now? Is it going to make it?
What's going to happen is that they will be opening much more prepared.
Right. Yeah.
That's the change, is that they'll be prepared and we won't have to handhold as much and basically run the operations for the first months, because that's what we're doing right now.
Which is a pain on your side and it's a cost on your end and your people, as opposed to giving that responsibility to the franchisee.
Yeah, it's a big cost. And it's not just the cost, it's also the franchisee has more stress. We have more stress because if they're unprepared, they've got edge cases, they've got things that they just don't know how to deal with, and that stresses them out. So an example, Perth that just opened 2 weeks ago. So basically the day it opened, it was still installing lights. Okay. And the reason for that is because I essentially allowed the opening for a particular date.
Yep.
And the hope was that everything was going to get done by then. But the reality is that it was not. So therefore, there were many, many things that were sort of overlooked in the rush to actually open. And then on top of that, the confounding factor here was that demand was absolutely nuts, like nuts, crazy, right? Absolutely bananas crazy. So we now have sort of people who are unprepared, not fully trained, not without enough staff, running into a business that's running at 110%.
Yeah, makes sense. And you know what? These are learning journeys that people have when you go through the stages you go through. And that's what being a franchisor is all about, right? So, what's something that about franchising that people don't talk about? So, what is something that you felt that you should have known or could have known or should have been told before you got into this?
Yeah. There's one main factor I think is that you will never be prepared enough for the lack of understanding of how business works that franchisees bring to the table. Okay, because for people who operate in their business, it's very much second nature.
Yeah.
They don't think about certain things; they just are. Right? We don't think about breathing every day, and that's what happens to general business operators. Been doing it for a while. They just know it just happens, right? Whereas that's literally the opposite for a franchisee. And the one thing that's really active for me is just how much opposite it is. It's like literally completely opposite. Like breathing requires thinking about every single breath.
I love how you put it that way, but it's very true, right? I don't think any franchisor that I've ever worked with is prepared to get into transitioning from independent to a franchise model, and I hear that all the time. So it's quite I find it hilarious, but I don't find it hilarious because, as you say, for me, it sounds natural. You should know this, but for most people, it doesn't come naturally. And it's something that I'm very big on. Let me tell you what you're going to get into before you get into it. Can you be prepared for that? And that's something that not everybody's very prepared about that. So tell me, what was there something that nearly broke you when you got into franchising, or was it something that majorly thought, what the hell am I doing? What am I doing?
Um, Maybe I don't dwell on stuff. So there would have been some circumstances where you just wonder what is going on here, and you start questioning just how capable are you really of getting this done, because it's a different capability, it's a different business requirement really to get franchise off the ground. And I always knew that, and I always said that running a franchise is not running whatever the underlying business you're running. It's a different business, and I still believe that's very much true. The thing that really got me and gets me and gonna continue getting me forever is just how underprepared the franchisees are for the world of business.
So do you find that they just come in with money and say, I want your brand, here's my money, help me? Is that usually what you find?
Not really, not really. They're committed people. I don't have anything bad to say about their commitment. They're committed people. They want to make it happen. It's just that it's one of those things that you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, it's very difficult to learn things and be aware of stuff that you don't know that you need to be aware of. Okay, and that's where they're coming from. For me, I've just been in business all my life, so it's just natural for me what business does, the fluctuations, the requirements, the demands of business. And people who've never run a business before, they just don't have that. So they have to change completely how they think about stuff. So one of the things that when you've been an employee all your life, you see other employees from a particular perspective. When you start employing people, you actually see those people from the same perspective as an employee. The problem is that perspective is completely wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, because when you're an employee, you don't really pay attention to how much other people are making the business. You don't care. You get paid no matter what those people do, right? And sometimes you get upset because they might put in a little bit more, you might put in more effort than they. Okay, so there is this dynamic, right? But when you're hiring people, there's only one dynamic. You have to get resources that are going to give you value. That's it, right? That's it. There's nothing in between. There's nothing else, right? And that's a black and white. Whereas being an employee, there's nothing black and white. Everything is gray. Here, it's just completely black and white. You either get a person that's able to produce results you want, or you have to fire that person. That's it. Simple as that, right? And that is not something that's simple for them to understand. And also, I'm finding that's very, very interesting is that we at our business, we're extremely selective with hiring, extremely selective. So to a point where sometimes we get 1,000 applications and we can't hire a single person. We're very selective, right? And we tell all the franchisees like you have to look for people that bring experience, skill set, and depth of that experience. And majority of them are not going to actually work out, and you shouldn't interview them. But even if you interview them, you should still be extremely critical of them. Whereas they see people like people. It's like everybody is a person, therefore they're good, right? If they say on a resume that they've done something similar before, they're great. They should be able to just step in and just do it. And what they're finding out is that is like completely opposite to reality, is that 99.9% of people are not suitable to any job as far as a business owner is concerned. In a corporate, is different. In corporate, you can basically, is I keep saying that in corporate, you can hide all your life. You can get a whole corporate job and not achieve a single thing in 10 years, and you'll be fine, right? As long as you show up to work and you look like you're busy, you are completely fine, right? And that's the truth probably most of the time, right?
Mm.
And whereas in your own business, that's like opposite, right? You actually want continual result efficiency minute by minute from your people, right? And nobody is invisible. Everybody is completely visible, right? All the time. Again, this is different to what they would find in a white collar job. In a white collar job, you can hide forever, right? You can hide half a day every day, right? And that's what, on average, that's what people do. People in white collar jobs are productive maybe 3 hours a day, maybe. That's at most, that's max, right? So people's franchises expectations that I see is that a person will be like them. They will have the initiative. They'll want to do this, and it turns out that it's actually the opposite. So what's happened in the last two franchises is that the majority of the team that was hired initially was fired pretty much almost immediately, because it was hired under one set of conditions where you think that everybody is good. And then when it comes to getting results, you find out that they can't get any results out of these people, and they have to change what they hire. And that's one of the things we're going to change, is we're going to be much more involved in the hiring process down the track. Because no matter how much we tell franchisees that you need to look out for these traits, you have to be absolutely critical. They just don't do it.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing, right? Only you know what you need. And this is something that I think it's like a mindset, right? You got to do a mindset kind of change into people that go into your business to say, okay, you've come from whichever industry, whichever kind of come from corporate into a business ownership. You've got to try and change that mindset before they come in, because if they don't have that, that's when you find that they either struggle or it takes them longer to get to the part where you need them to be a bit more proficient in it. So it's an interesting way of seeing it, but it's a very big mindset. Just switch over. Because I felt when I sell franchises and I see people coming out of corporate and they're like, I want to leave my 9 to 5 job and I want to be a business owner. And then I'm like, okay, do you understand that business ownership isn't all what it takes? There's ups and downs and there's peaks and troughs. And, you're not going to get a paycheck every week. Sometimes you're going to have to be the last person to get paid. Are you okay? Are you prepared for that? And yeah, 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 yeah. And then they get in and they're like, okay, this is shocking.
Mm.
I can't do this anymore. But it's a fascinating run. So
Yeah, yeah. And it's actually, to correct you, you are the last person to get paid. Always.
yes, I know.
Yeah.
And they have to be prepared to do that, right? And I guess if they're not prepared to do that, then you just think, oh, are you the right fit for taking on this business? Because you've got to come in and you've got to sort of think of all the other things that can go wrong before you can go well. And I guess that's why franchising is probably the better way to do it, because they're buying a system that has been proven that works. You just have to follow your training, implement your training, and follow and trust the system. Do you find that they trust your system or they try to go askew and do something else?
Well, everybody sort of goes outside of the set parameters that we provide for them. But in most cases, they sort of come back. So they self-correct because they try something different and it doesn't work as well. That makes sense, because everybody always thinks that they know better, right? And that's just natural for everyone to think that. So our job is to put systems in place to keep them on track as much as possible. But can we do it 100%? No,
No.
because we're not there all the time. So they need to be able to self-correct. And if they don't self-correct, then we have to sort of put systems in to correct them. And that might get nasty. And this is something that hasn't happened yet, but I can see that there is a possibility down the track where we start have to demand things of franchisees, which would sort of change our whole dynamic.
And do you find as well that you're actually deselecting people, or do you prefer for them to deselect themselves when they're coming into your lead flow funnel into kind of, I want to take on your business? Do you deselect them or do you are happy for them to deselect themselves?
We haven't had to do that yet, but we also, and I'm very big on talking them out of it.
I love that.
Okay.
And you do a good job of it. I know that because you like to, you like to tell them how it is. And I love that. And I think as a franchisor, if you aren't giving them the worst case scenarios of what you need to look forward to or what you need to kind of expect, you're doing them an injustice. So I'm very big on being genuinely out there and saying, this is not for you if you don't like doing X, Y, Z. So is that how you do
Yeah,
it?
yeah, absolutely. Basically, I tell them, look, here's the negatives, right? Like, and I go through all the negatives with them. Business is really not for everybody. Business is for a very small minority of people. Just the amount of stress and issues you have to deal with. Most people don't want to deal with them. That's fair enough. I'm all for that. So business is for very few. And this we have this conversation sort of at the outset to explain that it's complicated. It's very complicated. It's not simple. And even though they're getting a franchise where theoretically everything is worked out. We can't work out everything, not in this business, right? It's maybe some QSR, Subway can work out everything because everything is just so regimented and there's no alternatives whatsoever. Our business is way more complicated than that. It's just more complex than that, much more moving parts, and therefore every venue is different. Every venue looks different. Every venue has different size and feet and everything. So yeah, there's going to be issues from day one, on day 10, and day 1,000. And if they're not prepared to deal with more issues than are dealt with in their entire life all at once, then don't think about it, basically. And I'm quite happy for them to say no, because it's fine. We don't make any money on franchise fees, right? I don't really care. I care in that it needs to be there. But that's not where the benefit is. Benefit comes from, for us, it's from the royalties and the scale. Okay, so it comes from those two. So some franchisors, I know, they just want to sell as many as possible because they'll make all the money on the franchise fee, and they don't really care about the back end, and they just flip them and flip them and flip them. And then the last thing they want to do is talk people out of it because they just want the franchise fee, and that exists. That exists out there. With us, first of all, we can't have that many, right? We can't have hundreds of these things in Australia. And ultimately, the benefit is in scale because of what we want to do down the track. Ultimately, we want to make a group that's big enough to get to some exit of some kind. And that's another thing, is that if you've got very poorly performing franchisees in a group, that long-term goal will be jeopardized because whoever is reviewing the data is going to say, well, what's going on with this and why? Oh, what about the others? Will they fall into the same category?
Yeah. And how do you deal with those struggling? I mean, you're fairly new, so you probably don't have anyone that's kind of struggling, but how do you deal with someone who is kind of finding or showing signs of struggling? What's your aim to help them out of that?
Well, let's define struggling. Okay. In my mind, if you're sort of making a profit on the franchise and the profit is of approximately 25% on your initial capital investment, to me, that's not struggling. That's sort of normal, right?
Okay.
If you're making more, well, that's fine, great. If you're losing money, which we haven't had that situation yet, I'm not sure what to do with franchisees like that. My guess is that we can support them in greater effort in marketing, right? And try to bring them up to speed. We can get them to try to do a little bit more marketing themselves. But if none of these things work, the way we see it is that it is very likely, if that's how it happened, that something in the venue itself wasn't working. Okay. So it's very likely that the food quality, the service quality was not good enough that customers came back in big enough numbers. And because this is a customer return business, right? So this is not first transaction. This is about the third, the fourth, the fifth, and word of mouth. Ultimately, that's what this business is about. So if a venue is continually losing sales and it hits a threshold and goes below that, it's possibly something in the venue.
So something broken in the system as opposed to the person or opposed to the anything else, which is really interesting you say that, because sometimes I hear that it's the franchisee and I'm thinking, but if you've got a system that's proven, it's got to be something broken somewhere along the line because you trained them, right? So it's really interesting you say that. I like the way you map that out. Tell me something. Is there a myth in franchising that you feel needs to kind of disappear or not be around?
I actually don't know because I haven't really been around franchising all that much.
Okay.
So we are approaching this with absolutely zero background in franchising, right? So all I know is I've seen a little bit from a distance how franchisors operate, and it looked like most of what I've seen.
I love it.
I was trying to do, but you know what? I'm coming around to some of the things that they do because I can see that those things are done based on certain knowledge and wisdom that franchisors accumulated over years to see that there are better and worse ways of dealing with franchisees. And some of the ways they do it didn't come from them necessarily wanting to make it happen like that. That came from them needing to do it like that.
Mm, makes sense. And I guess if you had to start again tomorrow, what would you do differently?
Tomorrow, what would I do differently? Look, the only thing I would have done is what we're going to be doing now. Is I would have been much more insistent on making sure that absolutely sure that the franchise venue, including the people in it, are absolutely ready to start trading.
Yeah.
And we have not done that enough, right?
And that's the thing. I think the only way you're going to know what works, what doesn't work, is by giving things a good go and then testing and trialing. One of the big things that I did was I test and trialed whilst I had franchisees on board, and that wasn't very good because they didn't take that very well. And it was like, you're using me as like a trailblazer, and I don't like that. So, yeah, it's really hard when you want to sort of try and pivot things whilst you've got active franchisees. They just hate changes. But when you sort of get them to go, right, the change is going to happen. This is why we're doing this change. This is the way we're going to do it. You get the buy-in from them, and it really does make a difference as well. So, but I'm very excited to hear most of your journey. Tell me, where are all your sites now? I lost track of where you are now.
Well, it's still very similar. So we've got 5 venues in Melbourne and 1 in Perth. We've sold 3 more in Melbourne that are going to be opening. We're opening in Gold Coast. That's going to be a corporate store, and that's happening probably August. And looks like we're going to open in Brisbane as well. That's probably also going to be a corporate store. So one of the things I found with not wanting to open corporate stores is that it's very difficult to get franchisees from a different geographical area. They want to touch and feel, and I think fair enough. So I'm calling it seeding an area, basically. So put one in a new area and let people who are interested actually experience it properly, and then others will come. That's what we're seeing with Perth, for example. Perth just opened, and we're now fielding 4 sort of applications straight away for more stores in Perth because these people have actually gone and had a look.
Is yeah.
Right. Same will be hopefully in Brisbane once we open that venue. That'll happen. So that's, and then ultimately we'll might sell these corporate venues as franchise operated venues.
So you flip them as a resale after that? Is that what you've planned?
Yeah, that's the plan. We'll probably open it, get the operations working, maybe 6 months to a year, and then sell them. So if there's an interested franchisee, it's like, here, take this one. Yes.
Love it. I love your plans. And tell me more about US. I know that Texas was one of your
No,
areas.
Texas is
No,
definitely
it
not.
wasn't.
So, but I think Vegas is probably the number 1 market. So if we're going to open our first one, unless there's some other opportunity, it might be Vegas, because what we do sort of suits that market perfectly. And then look, East and West Coast, right? It makes sense. So New York is a complicated market, but and LA, but yeah, also Florida. So Miami, Orlando, those sort of tourist areas make sense for me. But look, it's a start. The plan was always to get out of Australia as soon as possible, because the market in Australia is quite small. It's big enough to start for, but the plans are bigger than that. And 45%. So right now, to give you an idea, we've got just under 5 million followers across all our channels, and we reach about 200 million views a month. 200 million views a month, every single month, and 45% of that is in America.
Wow. Okay.
So America is a very natural market for English speaking, so similar thoughts, thinking about food. There's lots of differences, and I'm worried about those differences because, again, I don't know how to fix things that I don't know, and so I will need to use some sort of consultants to actually set up the first one up there, not necessarily from the franchise perspective, because it'll probably be a corporate store, but just from dealing with regulations of opening restaurant, etc. They're not the same. And then we'll see. Then we'll see how it goes, because our footprint is already there when it comes to brand. We can see it. So it's just a matter of can we convert it Can we capitalize on it? And then America becomes a much bigger market for us. As I said from the beginning, our model, I think, can go anywhere, and the entire Europe is possible, Asia is possible. So it's all possible, just a matter of making it happen. And we're now sort of, I'm more and more of the opinion that I've got to accelerate this as opposed to keep it going the way it is now. We're not getting younger, so we might as well push as much as possible.
I absolutely agree with you. And the quicker you get there and the quicker you do it, but there is a speed, and you've done very good growth in the last 2 years, and your growth has been steady but firm. And then you've seen the progression. So I think, in my opinion, I think you've got the ability to take that next transition to quite accelerate it quite significantly because you're ready. You know what you had to do, what you had to fix. You had the experience of putting on people. You know what works, what doesn't work. You've been in the industry for quite some time. So now it's the time to shine, Greg, and it's your time to now show that third wave is going everywhere, and we want to see that everywhere now. It's got to come into Sydney.
Yeah, hopefully. But we're finding that we're not getting a lot of inquiries for Sydney. So we might have to do the first corporate store in Sydney, but it looks like it'll be next year because if we're opening our own in Gold Coast and our own in Brisbane, then it'll probably be next year that we'll start looking in Sydney. But we can see that, sort of 30 to 40 of our venues is definitely possible within the next 3 years.
I love it. Well, when you come to Sydney, let me know. I always like to go to Melbourne and go past and try it because it's just something that I absolutely love. And the experience, if no one has been there that's listening today, that I want you to go out and see it because it is the most amazing food. The experience is amazing. And it's just something that everyone needs to experience and has to go and try your food. So well done for everything you've done. I'm very excited for what's coming next. Do keep in contact because I always enjoy your journey. And I keep looking at all your collateral and all the stuff you pull out on social media. And I'm like sitting there going, I want to eat now. So it's just, you've done so good and your team has done an amazing job. So well done, Greg. Before we go and before I let you go, tell me just quickly a little bio of Third Wave and tell me what you do, how you do it, what is it, why people should join you.
We've got a couple of pillars that we're very strong on. Number one is our marketing. So we probably, without boasting too much, one of the best on the planet at marketing restaurants through organic social. And this is very important. You would think that organic social doesn't cost much, but we have an in-house team made up of 3 people full time that are building our organic social posts. And that's how we're able to do 100 posts a week, etc. And that's what gives us 200 million views a month, etc. So that's a huge pillar. And I keep saying that we're probably getting more views than McDonald's, KFC, Pizza Hut, Domino's put together. In Australia or anywhere really. So that's pillar one. And secondly is the business model. We say we inject theater into a dining experience. So we're sort of a dinner and a show. American barbecue is just the baseline cuisine, which allows us to elevate it to make it a much more entertaining process in people's dining, and that allows for groups to have fun and enjoy celebrations. So we have a model where people can experience something different to the usual casual dining experience. And because of the theater, so you would get that kind of theater in really high-end fine diners. So we're talking about 2-star, 3-star, where it's beautiful, it's amazing, but you're paying $500 a head, right? It's all very experiential, but you're paying $500 a head. In our restaurants, you're paying 60 to 70, and you're enjoying a fun experience where there is an experiential component to it. So that's the 2 pillars. So we have a reasonably unique model. There are others that have elements of what we do, but I don't think there's anyone that has the entire componentry when it comes to the restaurant, and then the marketing just supports that. So when you buy our franchise, you sort of enter into this ecosystem, which is sort of self-perpetuating because the more venues, the more money we put into marketing, and that brings more people into our customer base, into our reach, into our market that we can target. And we're seeing that. So initially it was one store. We only spent a certain amount of money on marketing, and now we're spending probably about 50% more money on marketing. And our views go up and our reach goes up. So we started last year. We only had 100,000 database of people with emails. Now we've got almost 200,000 database, right? So these are big numbers, right? So when you buy a franchise, you're stepping into that. You don't have to buy it. You don't have to do it. You tap into it from day one, which is, I think, is a big deal because it took us millions and millions of dollars in getting here, right? And many years. So whereas when you buy a franchise, it's just done. It's there, right? So before opening Perth, I couldn't say with certainty that our brand extends past Melbourne because I just didn't. And I like boasting about stuff. I don't like saying things that haven't been proven. But with Perth opening, so what happened was really restaurants that really only existed in Melbourne opened one in Perth and said, "Okay, we're here now, right?" That's all that really happened. Come and check us out, and we have to limit demand, like with big time, right? So that means that our brand extends way past Melbourne and probably globally. And we felt that, but we could never prove it. Now we can prove it.
Love that. And have you used external people to generate leads for you from a franchise sales, or if everything's done internal with your internal
Everything is done
people?
internally. Yeah.
I love it.
Everything is done internally. Well, we have the skill set to be able to manage marketing and paid marketing as well as organic in our internal team, right? So therefore, we can do it. There's no real need to pay others other than they might know more than us. And what we found is that we probably have enough skill set that the external agencies don't really know more than us. They might know the same, but they don't know more. Therefore, we can just replicate what they do internally, and that will cost less.
Do you think that you find people, when you put marketers in place, do you find that it's more beneficial to have people internally embedding the brand versus using external people to do marketing? Or what's your thoughts around that?
I have very, very negative thoughts about marketing companies. Okay. There, as far as I'm concerned, probably 99% of them are completely useless. I can give you some reasoning for this. It's not like I don't like marketing companies. I like them. I keep asking some marketing company every a few days to come and prove to me that you can do a better job than what we can. And I haven't seen anybody actually prove it to me yet. And I'd love them because ultimately, if somebody comes and says I can do what you can do only better, I'm gonna say do it, please. Okay. But I haven't seen that yet. So the issue with other franchisors is they need to get lead flow, right? But they're already behind because their brand hasn't really been activated. It's not live. They don't have reach. So the marketing companies have to start from zero. And somehow they have to get leads, convincing people out of nothing that this is a good idea. I don't actually know how to do that. How do they do that? And I can tell you, if I don't know how to do that, they don't know how to do that. Okay. So then you have to get really creative as to how do you sell. We don't have to get creative at all. Like nothing creative happens with us. All we do is we do an ad, okay, and because of the brand, we get leads. That's it. There's nothing creative. We're not doing anything complicated at all, right? Maybe if we did some tricky stuff, we would get more results, but it's okay. Right now, it's fine. But for a brand that doesn't have this backup that we have, right? I don't really see how they can actually get their word out. And the marketing companies are not good at that, right? They don't really know what they're doing in most cases. Because I'll tell you why. So the basic rules here are these: that if a marketing company knew how to sell, because that's really what's required, right? So an external agency needs to be able to sell, right?
Yeah.
In some way. If they knew how to sell, they would make so much money by selling their own stuff. Okay, so much more money, right? I don't care what stuff. Just if you sell your own stuff, you will make more money than by selling somebody else's stuff. Always. Okay.
Mm.
Um, but they're not selling somebody else's stuff, their stuff. They're selling somebody else's stuff. And the only reason they're doing that is because they can't sell. That's it. That's the only reason. Okay, I'm sorry. It's like I have a very particular view on this, right? And the thing is that they're not responsible, right? Ultimately, what happens is that they've got no skin in the game. They say, oh, we will do this for you, whatever. That we'll run this ad campaign, we will create these marketing assets, we'll do all of that stuff, right? And you'll pay us this money. And what happens if none of it work? Well, it'll work. Okay, well, prove it to me. So I would suggest that it's a tricky question for everybody. And the thing that, if anybody, my only advice to any franchisor in choosing a marketing company, okay, is you really have to dig very, very deep into, you need to know what to do. You need to know what to do. You might not be able to execute it yourself. That's okay. But you need to know the process, the methodology behind how good marketing works.
Yeah.
And you need to drill down with the marketing company in that do they understand this methodology? How they're going to follow it? What are they going to do? Not just believe that they're going to get you results. Because if you believe that, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen, right? Or if it does happen, it happens by accident, and you're paying a massive amount of money for it, right?
Yeah, because it's usually a retainer, then it's a commission. When the salesperson completes that sale, it's like a lot of expenses for a franchisor to have an external person generate leads for them.
So we have found that it costs us at this point in time, and the costs are coming down now, but initial sales were about 20,000 a sale. That was our cost. Yeah. And
Commissions.
no, all up. So
Okay.
this is everything, all the marketing expense, including the commission, everything to do with a transaction from zero to a completed franchise sale cost us $20,000. And now that's probably coming down, but I see us probably getting it down to maybe 12 and a half, 13,000. This is Australian, right? That's if we have external. Internal will if we bring internal and our sales continue, it'll halve again. So
Right.
it'll probably
Okay.
get to 5 or 6,000.
And there's a theory behind the madness when franchisors say to me, I spend so much money on ad spend.
Yep.
I'm not converting, or I get so many leads and you're only converting 2 a month or whatever. What happens to the other ones? That's a waste of leads. What would you say around that?
Yeah. The number one thing is that the marketing company has no idea what they're doing. Okay. And that's why you're spending so much on ad spend, because they don't know how to create a compelling ad that converts. They just don't know. They have no idea. Right. So what happens is that you're now playing the numbers game, right? You put out enough ads there, and if they're crap, some of them will still attract attention, right? But you're paying for a lot of other crap. In regard to leads, well, you're not qualifying them. That's it. It's simple as that. So your advertising, your flow, your funnel is not qualifying leads. So therefore, you're getting a lot of leads that are. But there will always be leads. My thoughts are, when it comes to franchising, I would say that at most 1% of leads are actually convertible into a sale, no more. Okay, that's what we're seeing. So if you paid for 100 clicks on an ad, you're okay if one of them was actually serious, where you can actually have a conversation, right? Doesn't mean it'll convert. It just means you have a conversation, right? The rest that there's no conversation. There's just nothing. It's a waste of time. Okay, because it looks like, and I didn't know this, I found out when selling, is that lots of people get really excited about buying your business. Okay. But the excitement doesn't last very long. That initial excitement happens and they want to know more, but that's about it. Okay, so there's lots of that. And therefore, that's where a lot of the leads that go nowhere actually occur, is that if you're good at promoting, if you're good at running ads, you're going to get lots of excited people. Right? The problem is you also need to be good at qualifying.
Yeah.
Okay. And so this is what I'm saying, that a marketing company has to have this capability of creating digital assets that convert, and then they have to create funnels that qualify, and they have to do it based on the business that you're running. So there's actually quite a bit of knowledge and know-how and skill set that's required to do all of those things, right? And I would suggest, and I'm not saying that there are no marketing companies that can do it. I'm suggesting that the majority cannot. And therefore, when a franchisor just goes out to the market and says, okay, I want to get 3 quotes to do this, it's very unlikely they're going to find out of those 3 quotes somebody who actually knows what they're doing.
So do you find that when you have these leads coming into your business, into your funnel, do you automate them, how you get them through to qualified, or do you have human elements doing that part?
Yeah, so right now for us, as I said, we're doing something very, very simple, because we are, if we had sort of 10 times more leads coming in, we would be automating them. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
But in our case, we have sort of 15 to 20 leads a week.
Okay.
Okay. So it's not little, it's not massive, right? So that means there's no need to automate, because out of those 15 to 20 leads, 60 or 70% will never return a phone call. Okay, so you're left with 5 to 6 that you could actually speak to, and
Yep.
those 5 to 6 then leads to either zero or another conversation. So it's not a massive amount of work, and that's where Rory, our sales agent, let's call her, she spends time, and that's where Retainer is for, to actually call these people and qualify them, and then have further discussions and nurture and all of that. But again, nurture, it doesn't really work. Nurturing a sales lead only works if you're actually selling a franchise. But as far as I'm concerned, we're not selling a franchise. We're just here for people to buy it, right? So our job is to tell them everything they need to know, to make it very clear for them what this is and what this isn't, right? And be with them and answer all their questions and answer them when they want it to be answered. And that's it. Like, following up leads is a waste of time. They're either interested or they're not interested. It's as simple as that, right? Because we can't sell it to them. If they didn't call you back for 2 weeks, it's because they're not interested. What's the point of wasting time, tracking them down? If they get interested 2 months from now, they'll call you. Right?
Yeah, that's true. Or like, think about it forever. Those I have to speak to my wife, or I have to speak to my husband, and I need to think about it. And it's like, yeah, okay, think about it. You'll never come back.
That's okay. That's fine. That means they're not committed. And what's the point of dealing with these people if they're not committed? The only way that this works is people want to buy, right? So they push you to produce the documents, to do this. Okay, fine. Those are the right people, right? That's a way to filter out leads that are real and not real, right? Initially, you may not know, but it becomes apparent very quickly, right? Very, very quickly. And maybe some franchises have a much bigger deal flow, but I don't see any reason why they would, because if they have a much bigger lead inquiry, it's because they're not filtering anything or qualifying anything at the point of the lead. Where they actually click of the ad, they're not qualifying at all. Okay, they're just saying, say hello, tell us your name, and we'll contact you. That's not the right way.
I agree. I totally agree. Well, you learned this in a very, very small amount of time. There are franchisors out there that have got years of experience with lots of and they're still using those external franchise lead generation companies and still questioning why those leads aren't converting or why they're not doing anything and why so your insights from it, as I call you a newbie in the franchising space, has been very, very, very raw, and I appreciate your rawness. I always appreciate, and I always say this, your very, very candid way of saying it and calling the shots. As I say, there's no BS with Greg at all. So I love that about you, and I don't ever change, and keep striving along because you're doing an amazing job, and keep posting me about what's going on, because I enjoy hearing all your fantastic achievements, and your brain is amazing. So thank you very much, Greg. That's a wrap for today's episode of Let's Talk Franchising. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, diving into franchising with me. If you've got something valuable out of this, do me a favor, hit subscribe, leave a review, and or share with anyone who you feel could do really well with listening to this. Got any questions or ideas for future episodes? Send them my way. I'd love hearing from you. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and of course, keep talking franchising.